What's up everybody? Me, PJ, back again with another album review. Today I'm going to be talking about the debut album from Spokane, Washington-based deathcore outfit Enterprise Earth, which is called Patient Zero, and it's out today via Stay Sick Recordings. Now, if you're not too familiar with these guys, they play a very brutal yet technical style of deathcore. Very hard-hitting, very punchy, and it does get a little bit relieved from that with some pretty technical leads at some points in their songs. Now, the reason I know of these guys is because of their vocalist, Mr. Dan Watson, who used to do vocals for the band Infant Annihilator. You may have heard him on if you listened to their 2012 album, The Palpable Leprosy of Pollution, which was much like this band, very brutal, yet mixed with some more technical elements, so it gave you a nice kind of variation throughout the mix. Now, prior to this album, Enterprise Earth did release an EP back in 2014. It's called 23. I definitely recommend checking it out. I'm not too familiar with it, though, as I did discover these guys quite a bit after this EP was released. Now, as for the album itself, this album just hits heavy, hits hard from track one. The first track, Shallow Breath, is just a fantastic opener. Just enters with just blasting drums, just heavy as hell guitars, just great all around. You've got just everything you could want from just a pummeling, punishing deathcore track. And that continues through the next few songs. The second track, Theophany, great song, awesome technical leads going on, very brutal. This song reminded me the most of Infant Annihilator, so if you're a fan of that techie but also just slow and just heavy deathcore that they brought on their first album, you'll definitely like this song. And this is a common theme throughout the album, just heavy, hard-hitting tracks. Now, another standout track is Porcelain Horror, which is track 5. It's very, very heavy, very in-your-face, very crushing, and even features Dickie Allen, who is currently the vocalist for Infant Annihilator, but some of you may remember him from his work with the band Dealey Plaza, who played sort of a very beat-down inspired version of deathcore. And the part where he's on is just disgustingly guttural in vocal performance and very just slow and heavy, and it's great. He does a great job, adds a lot to the track, which is all you can ask from a feature. Now, as far as other songs that really stood out, the title track, Patient Zero, very different track from many of the others because it starts with a very subdued, kind of clean intro, very kind of creepy in atmosphere, and then builds into what you can standardly hear on the rest of these tracks from Enterprise Earth, but it's done really well, and it has an outro that basically sort of repeats what the intro was, just without the vocals. The cleans are actually done by their guitar player, and I think he does a pretty good job, and it definitely has a good effect. Now, the last real standout track on the album to me was Amorphous. It's just a punishing, pummeling song, and it features a guest vocal appearance from Adam Warren of Oceano. And while it is cool that he made an appearance, his vocals are kind of similar to what Dan Watson brings to the table, so it was kind of hard to tell who was doing vocals at which part, but needless to say, that is pretty cool that they got a really big name in deathcore on their album. Now, as for the performance of each individual instrument, the vocal performance throughout is just awesome. The lows are great, the highs are not annoying, but they just do what they need to do. For the most part, you're going to get Dan Watson's lows, which are just awesome and crushing, really adds to the very brutal vibe that this band brings. As for the guitars, the rhythms are very, very crushing, and the technical leads can almost get up to Rings of Saturn style technicality. Specifically, I noticed this in two tracks, Sus Sebum, which the lead in that sounded like it could have been in a Rings of Saturn song, but it doesn't overpower you throughout the song. It's just a very specific part, and I feel like that was done really well. The next one that really sounded like Rings of Saturn to me was the next track, track 8, Transorbital Awakening, which sounds by the title like a Rings of Saturn song. And it even features one of their old guitar players, Joel Omens, doing a guest solo, which does sound a little bit like Nintendo-y and kind of broke up this song a little bit, but that's a very minor complaint. Now, as for the rhythm section, bass, very, very heavy, adds a lot of groove to the album, really dug it, and the drums are always on point. They're very varied in their style of playing. There's not too much blasting, not too much like simplistic drumming. Really varied throughout, and it gives a very good performance all in all. Now, as for stuff I didn't particularly like on this album, track 6, Kiss of the Recluse, starts out with a bit of like whisper singing, I would say, and it instantly brought to my mind Jonathan Davis from Korn. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I really felt like the way it was used just didn't really do anything for me. It felt kind of odd contrasted to the rest of the song. Like, after you get through the intro, it just builds into like a standard Enterprise Earth like heavy deathcore song. I really didn't feel like the intro added that much. I felt it was a bit disjointed, and I didn't really care for that. In conclusion, this is a very punishing deathcore album. You've got awesome just heaviness with awesome epic leads, just all builds together into a really nice end product. I would definitely recommend this to fans of the genre, and if you have any interest in deathcore, I would definitely check this out. Now, as for a score, I would give this probably like an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very strong debut, but there are some things I didn't particularly care for. Now, this album's currently streaming. I'll link you to the stream. It's on YouTube. I'll also link you to their Facebook page, and I'll link you to where you can get a physical copy of this if you would like one. Alright, that's going to be it for this review. See you guys later, and keep it metal.